When first creating a React project, many old tutorials, including the previous version of this course, recommended to create a new application with special scripts or eject the application. Well, I've got good news for you. You don't have to anymore because since React Scripts 2.0 and above, CSS modules are actually supported. So let's go ahead and create our new React application inside of Visual Studio Code. Feel free to use any editor you want, or use a terminal to create the application and then come back into your editor of choice. But because there is a terminal included with Visual Studio Code, I'm going to do everything internally. So what I'm going to do is have Visual Studio Code open, and then I'm going to open up a new terminal. So you can do this by clicking here, New Terminal, or use the shortcut that you have in here. So what I'm going to do to create a new React application is use npx. So if you're not familiar with npx, it's basically npm on steroids. So basically what happened after a while, npm realized that not every single thing that you want to use needs to be installed locally inside of your system. So what they did is created npx, which is a command which basically will use the library that you need to create a new React application in this case, but then it's going to clear up the local install of Create React App. So it uses a temporary folder, installs all the files that you need to create a new React application, creates the new React application, and then clears up that temporary folder. So it frees up space inside of your system. It also prevents a whole bunch of libraries being installed locally. So basically how it works, you need to do npx and then do the command that you would do if you were using the library in question. So to create a new React application, you would do something like create React app and then name the application or the folder the way you want to have it named, and then it will work with npx as opposed to have to that I have create React app like so. Perfect. So now what it's going to do is leverage create React app, install it internally, temporarily, create a new application, and then clear up that folder. So let's see what happens. Okay, so once the application is created, and by the way, make sure that you are in the directory where you want the application to be created. In this case, I created it on my desktop. So once you have it created, all you have to do is basically load it inside of Visual Studio Code. And I'm going to do that right now. Okay, so what you have to do is, if you're familiar with Visual Studio Code, is open Explorer and then open the folder where your application is created. In this case, it's on my desktop. So let's go ahead on my desktop. I've got CSS modules right here and open up the application like so. Okay, so this is primarily, if you're familiar with React, this is primarily the typical application that React will create for you. Depending on the version that you're watching this might be a little bit different. But since React Scripts version 2 and above, CSS modules are supported, so you don't have to worry if this is above version 2. In this case, I'm on 4. So you should be on a version above 4 and be fine. Okay, so this is the application, and we're going to work a little bit on it in the next video. We're going to change a few things here to basically prepare it for the project that we're going to be working on. So if you have that actually installed, let's run the application so you can see what it looks like. Again, if you're familiar with React, you can skip to the next video. This is basically typical React application. So what I'm going to do is make sure first that I am in the right directory by doing ls like so, and I am, and then I'm going to do npm start. And this is what the application should look like. So once you have this loaded and the application created, let's move on. Before we move on to introducing CSS modules, I want to prep our current project so we can remove a few things and prep the code for the next stage. So let's get to it. So I'm back into Visual Studio Code right here. And the first thing I want to do is remove the logo. So if you remember, and again, let's go ahead and turn on the application. So you bring up the terminal, npm start, and then we can close the terminal and bring up the application here. So as you can see right now, we have a turning star, or basically the React logo. So I want to remove all this and start from a clean slate. So I'm going to go back to Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to remove everything but the div class name app. So let's go ahead and do that, like so. And then also remove the logo right here because we're not using it. And then while we're at it, we're going to remove the logo into our file. So you can either do this inside of the actual folder on your desktop or where you have those files, or you can right click inside of Visual Studio Code and delete the file like so. Perfect. So the next thing I want to do, and we're not going to talk about CSS modules yet, but I still want to prep the files for that. So what I'm going to do first is change the name of app here. So what we're going to do, instead of doing app.css, we're going to do app.module.css. So let's go ahead and right click, rename, and do app.module.css like so. And then because we've renamed the file, we're not importing it properly here. So we want to basically import it properly here. So what I'm going to do, as opposed to just import the CSS files. So this is not doing module CSS. This is just importing the CSS files and then basically inserting it through class names. So we're going to change this now. So instead of doing it this way, what we're going to do is import styles from, and then we're going to rename the file here to app.module.css, like so. So now that we're doing this, we need to change how we're importing inside of the class name. So what you're going to do instead is doing inside of curly braces, styles dot app, like so. And now you're importing the styles for the app right here. So these styles, by importing them through styles.app. So we're going to cover how does that work, why we're doing it this way in the next video. But I just wanted to prep the files properly on this one, and then we'll just continue on that conversation in the next chapter. So let's save that file, okay? So now that we have that done, let's make sure that our application is running properly. So let's bring up the terminal and let's make sure that it's running if it isn't. And it was running already right here. So let's delete that. And right now there seems to be a problem. Cannot find that. Oh, okay. I just did capital M for this one. So let's save that. And then we're back and refresh that. And the application is running properly, but there's nothing right now, and that's completely normal because our main component right here is completely empty. Perfect. So now that everything is ready, let's move on.